All right.
Yep.
What's going on, everybody? It's Sex on X here, and here's Gaming Fan. Not to mention, do his own intro on his own channel, but that's besides the point in this
Fair,
video.
fair
So,
enough. This is the second time that happens, but yeah.
hmm, hey,
Fair
it
enough.
happens. I'm a co-host. So there you go.
Yeah,
Not even a
the
guest, just a co-host.
yeah. Well, you're technically the co-host. You're the only guy who does my videos, so it's like we only talk you so
Oh,
just the two of us. So unofficial
okay.
co-host.
Well, no. Well, okay. When you put it like that, now you get like very lonely on your channel. I'm just saying. Like I'm the only guy. Yeah. Unfortunately,
now now
it's like.
now now I fucking need to fucking get the SpongeBob scene for the world's smallest violin. uh, no, but no, but yeah, today this video for fuck's sake. What a way to start. We are very unprofessional. Today's
It
video
happens.
we gotta focus on
All right, this week's
Chainsaw Man.
perfect.
Yeah, today's video we gotta focus on Chainsaw Man. We gotta focus on two topics. Both are controversial for obvious reasons. My case,
Pretty much.
my case is my thesis pretty much. Why Makima is actually the good guy throughout Chainsaw Man before spoilers for anybody who haven't watched or read the manga dies.
Well,
Este,
the thing is about that is like it's more about like she wanted to do good, or she the goal she wanted was good. It's just the way she went about it, like pretty much like that. Like take Hawkman for example from America's Ladybug, which is not one. Is like he wants to save his
yeah,
wife, but it's just his methods with the
that
Akuma thing to save his
pretty
wife.
much
Similar thing with her.
it's the approach. It's the approach that people focus on.
Exactly, it's the approach.
I
It's
had
the
to s-
approach. Yes, it's the approach.
I had to say this in advance just in case. That doesn't mean I
Right.
gotta defend what
Right.
she did to Denji. What she did to Denji
Exactly.
is wrong.
Exactly.
We can all
What
agree
she did to Denji is bad.
that was fucked up.
Yeah, what she did to Denji. Yeah, what she did to Denji was bad. We're not disagreeing with that. No, definitely what she did with Denji was bad because it was a codependent relationship, and then it was all like just basically to
Very
manipulate, and
Machiavelli,
then the traumatization.
Machiavelli to bring the Pochita, the
Exactly.
Chainsaw Devil out of it. Because okay,
Exactly.
let me do the thesis. In reality, she's the good guy in the story, given all the context that we got revealed throughout the 96 chapters of the story, because that's basically her saga. Right after that, we move on to the
Pretty
other.
much.
We move on to the other
Pretty much.
four horsemen of the apocalypse. Right? It's been revealed that she's one of the four horsemen, even though
Right.
nitpick quick doesn't kind of make sense because the four horsemen are death, pestilence, war, and and wrath, and control is not one of them. I don't know. That's the author's decision.
Go figure.
Yeah,
Go figure. Go
yeah.
figure.
But even then, not with all the context, what she did, we can acknowledge that it's fucked up, right? Like one of her
It is
methods.
fucked up.
But within the context, she was
Right.
doing this in a very Machiavelli type of way to actually bring a good outcome, which was by her own admission, wanted to bring world peace.
Right.
A world without
Right.
violence, a world without death, without famine, disease, without war, which later turns out that's one of her sisters, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, right? Este,
Right.
and it's been revealed later in the manga, like during the end of that specific saga, the Chainsaw Man takes place in an alternative history. It takes place in an alternative 1990s Japan where World War One never happened, and since then there hasn't been a war since, or at the least a major scale war, right? If the That's the reason why the war that was so weak because there hasn't been a major war for basically 100 years. Este, because of that, given the context, she was supposed to be raised as a weapon, right? Her background, she was
Right.
raised as a weapon, right? And even despite her upbringing, which despite her upbringing to be a weapon, she still desired world peace. Despite that, even though she exhibit behavior, there, if I notice at least, I don't know if you ever noticed it, I noticed that her behavior is similar to how
Uh huh.
real life children soldiers or people raised in very abusive environments behave, right?
Right.
She has elements of PTSD, attachment issues, uh, difficult time control her emotions, which she actually tried to express it, right? antisocial behavior, right? Este, hints
Right.
of psychopathic and sociopathic behavior, suicidal tendencies.
Mostly sociopathic.
Yeah, suicidal tendencies, because you can interpret these say she desires that the chainsaw devil eat her and erase her from the system, which is a form of suicide. You can argue that she has suicidal
Right.
tendencies, right? Has suffered some
Right.
mental health issues, and she also suffers from some sort of addiction. In her case, she drank a coffee and smoking, right? Like you always see her smoking or drinking some type of caffeine, right? Mostly coffee.
Right.
Despite
Right.
her upbringing, that's why she exhibits certain behavior that's like repeat the pattern, right? That's why she has difficult time connecting to other humans, even though by her own mission she wants to connect to other people. But because of her
Right.
upbringing, she is actually socially awkward, despite the domineering personality that she exhibits. Right? She doesn't actually know how to interact with people.
Right.
And by her own mission, she doesn't want to take over the world or want to be a good. Actually, doesn't she doesn't really want to be a control devil, right? She just wants to have a family, right?
Yeah.
By Pochita's own mission, like she just wants is to have a family, to have parents,
Yeah.
to have a partner, to have kids,
Yeah.
to have a loving family that she never had because of her upbringing as a child soldier, and because you were raised as a child
Right.
soldier, just like real life example, is you don't raise something like that without suffering abuse, physical, mental, psychological, uh, possibly sexual, because sadly that happens a lot of people who are raised in those environments. Este,
Unfortunately.
and because of her upbringing, and because the government controls her, that's why by her own admission, she is actually scared of the government. That she actually creeps her out. And not only that, even though her name as a devil, she is called the control devil. Ironically enough, she can't really control her abilities. They're basically always on autopilot. Compared to her reincarnation, Nayuta, where she can actually control her
Hmm.
abilities. Where she has full control of the ability, while as Makima, her previous reincarnation, she can't really control them. They're on autopilot. Este,
Yeah.
and we know that despite the bad things we see her, she actually does more good than harm. The only problem is it happens off screen. And we only know this because of the lore information, right? Which is not a lot of information, but the few times they give us
Mm.
it gives us a stark contrast what we actually see on screen or on the pages, depending if you're watching the anime or the manga, right? If the by her own
Right.
admission, thanks to her, or at the very least, she approves, right? Where in the Chainsaw Table, erase the concept of Nazism, slow onset asthma, and AIDS, right? So Nazis don't exist, AIDS doesn't exist, and slow onset asthma doesn't exist. So, and either she is the responsible for that to happen, manipulate the chainsaw table to do that, or the very least she approves of these types of changes, right? By uh, by
Right.
by this, I did the math actually. How many people's lives were saved because of this decision? It's roughly, give or take, right? Because estimations, it's roughly around 240 million people. Like,
Yeah.
like we're talking about like roughly like almost 3% of the global population that has been saved because of her. But because we don't see that, we don't see that she's having like an anti-villain slash anti-hero role, right? And because
Right.
and because this takes place in alternative history, I will go this part a little later. But for now, that all she wanted was world peace by her own admission, right? That's why she wants to
Right.
stop the gun devil, even though the U.S. government, which is technically according to the Senate Chainsaw Man, the one actually controlling everything what's going on behind the scenes when it comes to the devil situation, right? If they work with the gun devil, but she doesn't know it. The thing that she's trying to hunt down is working with the same government that she was raised to work with, right? She doesn't know that. And
Right.
two, by the U.S. government's own admission, they are against world peace, By their own admission, if Makima brings world peace, that's bad. We don't want that. By their own admission, that only happens in one
And
panel. So if you skip that one panel, you you don't notice it. It's like blinking you miss.
I mean, that's one of those things that is like especially like I know some people will be like the way she goes about it. Like here's the thing. I know like again, getting rid of all the bad, then everything will be pretty much like stale. But the thing is her idea isn't bad. It's just the way she goes about it. Like because you
Yeah,
do need
it's
a little bit of chaos, to keep people on their toes. It's just the way she's going about that idea. It's like you have the peace, but just at least have a little like bad here and there, just so people can like obviously learn to balance. And that's just what she's lacking, the balance on aspect of the whole entire thing.
yeah,
That's all
like
that is.
it's one of those like what's the term you mentioned to be like well-intentioned extremists, where it's like the ideas themselves, the goals themselves, nobody's gonna disagree that. Who's gonna be actively saying, "Oh yes, I hate the idea of world peace"? Nobody's gonna say that unless you're the Joker. But
Right.
like unless you're the Joker. But like it's
Right.
but the one you gotta criticize her methods, right? And again, if you know that
Yeah.
if you know that even though she's a devil, she's one of the very few devils throughout the story that has a positive view on humans. If you compare to every other devil in the story, they either actively antagonistic or they just don't care about humans, and they view it like how we view
Right.
and they view humans how we view like domestic animals when we eat like chicken. It's like we don't really
Well, I
care what
mean,
happens to it as long as we get our fill.
well, the well, Well, the thing is about her case is like, unfortunately, the only part that I think folks look at is the fact that she look at humans as pets, but then she also has like this mixy outlook of like caring about some of them, even though view them as pets, and not even like ones you love, but ones like you train. It's like that's another aspect that
That's
I'll at
one
least admit
critique.
that's like,
But even then, even
yeah,
even by her own admission, like she can't really control them, and because of her upbringing, right, the only person who can see somebody's
right,
equal to her are people who are either like on the same level as her, like power wise, because they can basically go toe to toe, right? So they had like
right.
she does have respect to certain individuals, right?
She
If the,
does, she
and
does
like I said,
definitely,
she's one of the very few people that actually views humans in a positive light, right? If the
yes,
and she's also one of the very few devils that I think she's the only one. Well, with the exception of power, if the that we actually see her having
right,
hobbies. For the most part, we don't know. For the most part, we only see what when they attack cities or humans or just doing random shit, right? We don't know what their personal lives are, if they have any, right? Yes, the
right,
for Makima, we know that one, she's a film fanatic. She's a cinephile. Like she loves cinema.
right,
And two, even though it's a smaller detail, but there's another hint that she does have a personality outside of the workplace. Like she actually interested in human culture. Like she has a shoe collection. So she has a shoe collector. You know, if the
yeah, yeah.
I don't see any Jordans. Maybe she has one, but I don't know. But she has collect shoes,
Who knows?
and and also she does collect some paintings. Like she has the painting of the Fall of Lucifer from John Milton's Paradise Lost, which I think that's more thematic than actual lore information about her. That's more like related to the themes of like the devil falls from heaven. As the It also makes sense because she in the anime at least they portray her like the Virgin Mary, like this motherly figure who wants the betterment of humanity, you know. But
Right.
because they had to portray her as a villain, even though within all the context she's actually the good guy, and the government that she's working are actually the bad guys. Even later in the more recent chapters, they're actually kind of explored that, but they lost. That's a different topic. But like,
Because I mean, because the thing is about that is it's like her path is like yes, the way they have to make her the antagonist because again, it's more of the fact that her goal is good. It's just the methods are going to be the one main thing you're going to disagree with, and then of course because through that we have to make her like the antagonistic
yeah,
just
correct.
just for that fact alone. And also the fact that because again, since she was raised as a weapon, which I'll compare to Shadow, which I'll get to later, or we'll get to later, it's like
That's a
basically
statement.
like we were, yeah, basically we were discussing. It's like she she again her like because she's not after world domination or just straight up like wanting to just be a dictator or anything like that. Is basically more the fact that she just wants better for things because like you mentioned before, she wants a family, she wants genuine connections, but she doesn't get that in canon because I hate to say this, but she doesn't have anybody around her that actually would do that. I'll get into more of that later too.
Yeah,
And that fact that like all the good things, especially with the making world peace and her wanting to have a family, Pochita, all that is just her projecting what she wants onto the Chainsaw Devil. Just because she sees that he's like one of the very few that can go toe to toe with her, and because he's more powerful, and like you just said, she has respect for him. That's just her projecting what she wants onto him, even though like again that's not how genuine connections work. But of course she wouldn't know that because she's been isolated from even having anything like that. So then
yeah,
that's kind of the reason why she's after the Chainsaw Devil or is obsessed with the Chainsaw Devil in the first place, because just her basically projecting that idea onto him. And that's why in the later part in her story arc where she does fight Pochita and Denji's like, it's because that's just her wanting that really badly, and then of course her getting upset because he chooses Denji over her, and then that just
yeah.
kind of like obviously led to the outcome. So
No,
yeah, like
that's the
I'll
reason
let it. I'll let
because
it.
that's actually kind of the reason
Yeah.
because the Chainsaw Devil is one of the very few characters who are resistant to her control abilities, right?
Right.
By her own admission, she fell in love with him. You know,
Right.
because not only because he is resistant to her power, like I said, because he's on autopilot, right? She can't really control it the way
Right.
she wants to, right? But
Right.
like I said, he's one of the very few devils who is actually more heroic, that has a positive view of humanity, that he actively
Pretty
fights
much.
other devils. So that's why what Makima admires by that, like she got inspiration from that. Of course, in a different way, but you get what I'm saying, right? If the
Right.
and even if the by her own mission, she misunderstood that she thought that
Right.
the chainsaw devil was uh like a rabbit animal, so to speak, that he would just fight anything. So, so she thought if I can make it into a gentle giant, so to speak, he will do more good than harm and help people. But she doesn't know that that
He's already
Pochita
like that.
that he's already like that. He doesn't. She doesn't know that. She got that
No.
misunderstanding that he thought that he was just a rabbit fighter with no actual moral, so to speak. Basically Goku
Right.
just fight for the love of the game. No, but
I mean, basically, she just thought she could. Again, I mean, yeah, she basically just thought she could like get him to shape him to be what she thought, basically what he already is. So it's like, okay, well, that's a little too late on that.
yeah, too late on that part. But you get what I point. Like she's generally within the philosophy, within her moral standing in the lore wheel. She's actually the good guy. She wants uh, her goals. By all accounts, everybody will agree with her. The only problem will be the method. And again,
Well,
going to the alternative history part. This is where I believe, right? If you as a writer you don't
well,
want to prioritize that, that's fine. But for me, they established because this is an alternative history, right? This is an alternative 1990s Japan where World War I never happened.
right.
When you really stop and think about that, and remember, if the Makima was the reason why this type of setting exists to begin with, right? If
Hmm.
there's more consequences in this setting that most people really think about because okay, World War I never happened. Okay, cool. But when you really think about the content, this is going like a more like social, political, historical context where it's like there's like a domino effect. If this never happens,
Right.
a lot of countries are gonna be radically different than we know today because I very doubt that 1990s Japan in Chainsaw Man said it's gonna be the same 1990s Japan in real life.
Right. Right.
You're telling me that there's no there's no consequence of this at all. Like nothing's gotta change because of this. Because I even did because there's a lot of scholars who study like what will happen. The reason things went to this direction because of this circumstance. But if you remove that circumstance, it's going to the opposite direction, right?
Right.
And I know this like
Right.
in many parts of the world, if there's no World War One, and by her admission, there's no such thing as Nazis. Like there's no fascism. Like fascism doesn't exist in the Chainsaw Man universe. That means
Right.
that means Italy never had Mussolini. Germany never had a Hitler.
Right.
You know, Japan never had
Nope.
Hirohito. Well, probably they would still have the emperor, but not the type of government that will eventually become. Este, you know,
No hierarchy.
yeah, no, America will really be more socialistic. Weirdly enough, when you really think about
Pretty much.
within the
Pretty much.
context, because when FDR was the president, the vice president was Henry Wallace, who was basically a socialist. Well, you can argue whether or not like the detail, but that's a different thing, you know. And he was supposed to be the next president, but because of political tension, the anti-Soviet Union, World War II shit happened, right? That's why they replaced with Harry Truman. Because of that obstacle never happened, there's more likely that Henry Wallace will be president, and because of him, probably there will be no Cold War to begin with. So that more likely
Right.
world peace was likely more likely to happen in this Chainsaw Man setting.
Basically.
You know,
Basically.
and as a Puerto Rican, most likely Puerto Rico is independent. I'm like, why can't I marry her? But like, and
Hey man, go through the multiverse of madness. The multiverse of madness. Just go through that.
yeah, I wish
It's
I did
like
like a Rick and Morty multiverse protocol. It's like, where is it? But no, but like I said, like within the context, there's like she's generally a good person, just with the questionable method to achieve the goal. That is
well, I
just
mean, I think the best way to put it, to be honest, is like she's not inherently evil. It's just the way she goes about things. Because she, like, again, she wants good things. It's just the way she goes about it. You know, that I
yeah,
think that's the probably
and
better
you
way to
can
put
tell
it.
because
Yeah.
Chainsaw Man, because it's Japanese material, and because reincarnation
Uh huh.
exists in Chainsaw Man, at least for the devils. For the humans, we're not so sure because they do mention heaven and hell,
We don't know about that.
so probably humans are immune to the reincarnation process, probably. But for the devils,
Who,
well,
who
we know
knows?
for the devils we know they get reincarnated, right? But because again, Japan, they are using the Buddhist understanding of
Yeah.
reincarnation. In Buddhism,
Right.
if we want to be academic philosopher, right, they believe what is considered impersonal survival, where unlike personal survival, where you personal identity and consciousness survives, in personal survival, is your consciousness survives that, but your personal identity, what makes you, your memories, your personality, who you are, does not. Just the essence, what makes it like the more abstract conscious, right? So
But see, but that's another thing too. But that's another thing I want to point out because I mean, because unfortunately, because Denji didn't take Nayuta out of sight of that area that happened in part one. Is like, then when did she get her memories back if she kept seeing too many things that look too recognizable? Then it's
it
like, okay, well that entity's technically kind of back because of that. I mean, I'm just saying.
probably there is a thing that's why again this is where the writer after part one was going to fall off slowly. Once we get
Pretty,
introduced to the Chainsaw
pretty,
Man Church part, that's where the jump the shark moment for me. But like, but the point
pretty much.
is,
Yeah.
because of the Buddhist theology of impersonal survival, right? Depending which Buddhist school of thought, because some consider oh you can recover memories previous life, others will say you don't. Depends the Buddhist school. But usually impersonal survival, you can tell because of the new reincarnation, even though it's the consciousness of the controlled devil Nayuta, but the personal identity is completely different. It's not the same person anymore, right? So to speak.
I mean, it's
It,
not, but no, but it's not. But there is a possibility. Like, if she keeps seeing too many recognizable stuff, then that might bring that personality back in that body. It may not be her previous body, but just be like that mindset is
yeah,
there. So it's
but
like, well, then it's technically like
but
kind of her.
yeah, but
Yeah,
if that doesn't happen, like we see so far in the story before spoiler got killed again, as the
pretty much.
and
We don't know where she's at now.
Compared to Nayuta, because she was never raised as a weapon, she has full control of her abilities, unlike Makima,
Right,
right? And
right.
but unlike Makima, she doesn't have a positive view of humans. She views humans mostly
No,
like
she does
how
not.
the average devil views them. She really doesn't really care about humans, and for the most part, she sees humans as inferior compared to Makima, who has more of a positive view and wants to improve humanity to some shape or form, compared to her other sisters who are actively want to destroy humanity, like famine,
Pretty
actively
much.
want to destroy
Pretty
humanity.
much.
The Death Devil, who only appeared just recently, uh, want to save people, so probably she was influenced by Makima in some shape or form, but because she just appeared so recently, I can't say anything for certain. And
Who
the
knows
war
for sure?
and the war devil Yoru just wants to bring back war, which is the one thing that Makima didn't want that to happen. But in her case, the reason she wants to bring back war because she doesn't want to be forgotten. So that's more of a like a personal reason why. Not she doesn't want to do war for the sake of it. You know, it's the yeah
And plus she's very selective about humans anyway.
yeah,
So
she's very selective. So far in the story, she's becoming slightly more open, just barely the bare minimum, right? To Denji and
pretty
Asa,
much,
but you know, but for the
yeah.
most
Those are
part,
only two. Those are only two.
yeah, for the most part, that's it. And like I said, like Makima is like, within the context of the story, everything. Makima is generally the good guy in the story. The government is the bad guy. They're fucking working with the gun devil, the one thing that she was trying to hunt down, right? And in the
Wait,
late,
didn't wait, didn't someone do a fanfic of like a whole thing? What if she raised Denji and then basically she would have figured out what the government was doing with the gun devil a lot sooner,
I
and then that's
I
how the thing would
I
have
know
turned out.
there is a fan fiction where she like what if the Makima raised Denji like a mother, that
Uh huh.
happened, but I don't know if she ever found out. Probably I haven't read the whole thing. I already read like a couple of chapters. If the
Okay.
and she becomes more of a good person because now she has something that she always wanted, which was a family in that fan fiction, right? So she is like
Right.
you know less antagonistic to the people she works with, you know, if they, especially the people that she knows will betray her, they found out her true goals. Este, but for the most part, I haven't read all the way that much through, so I don't know if she found out or not, or start to work against them. But within her character, she found out the government was working with the God Devil, and they're actively trying to provide world peace. She will definitely choose sides. You know, she will start actively fighting against the world government at this point, right? I remember in the
Right.
Dio death battle, you know, when they did Makima versus Gojo, they even say that like Gojo is basically Makima and she got her redemption. Yeah, weirdly enough, you know,
Basically, if she wasn't raised as a weapon,
if she wasn't raised a Venti, it would be basically like Gojo without the personality. Este,
pretty much,
you know, so
pretty much,
which is kind of weird how that happened. But people hyper focus what she did to Denji and portray her super
pretty
evil,
much.
which is like, I mean, it's fucked up. I can acknowledge that. What that's not defensible for
We're
people.
not denying that.
Yeah,
We're not denying that at all.
but
We
they're
acknowledge that that was abusive.
yeah, but
Yeah.
like I said, they hyper focus way too much on that one specific thing. You know, while
And the control stuff. And the control stuff. They
and the
focus way too much on the control
and
stuff.
the Gachosa, even though within the larger context, this is more like a she will do your Machiavellian type of character, you know, instead of being evil for the sake of it, you know, because there are other
Yeah,
characters
because like another
that
thing.
you can genuinely criticize, you know.
Oh yeah, like Euron Greyjoy can't defend him. Like he's one dude that's not gonna have a defendant. This
Correct.
is a dude. I don't mean to say this because I don't want to flag your video, but let's just say Euron Greyjoy did some shit to his family that's really fucked up, and he was a little boy himself.
Yeah,
And believe
yeah,
me, it's like you won't
yeah,
hear us defending nothing because
yeah.
he's so evil that when he was a kid, let me just cut it short because we're trying to make this video about Makima and Shadow.
The yeah,
That a grown ass man thought about actually killing him as a kid because he just saw how evil he was. It's like, okay, you know it's pretty bad, and then you're in Greyjoy, no tragic backstory. He just the Dark Messiah. That's what
yep.
he is. So
Quite
yeah,
literally,
there's nothing
the
to defend there.
the books are building him up to be the little antichrist of the story. Which is saying something in a book series where it's famous for very fucked up evil characters, and he's like the one that stands out. He's like, you know, you know, you're fucked up.
That's bad. That's pretty bad.
Within that setting, that's considered fucked up.
But no, but another thing I want to point out too with Makima's situation is that yeah, she did the bad thing she did. But I will say this though is that again, since she was raised as a weapon, the shit that she's not doing it because she gets some kind of joy out of it. She's doing it because she thinks it's efficient. Because again, she was raised to see people as expendable. So then that's just kind of more of like she's just doing what she was taught, not really so much of like unlike you're in Greyjoy, who does shit just for the joy of it, or it's just more about what's efficient. Because one thing, okay, look, Makima did fuck up things, especially Denji. But one thing you can't say is that she's not some mindless killer that would just go around randomly killing people. No, everything she does is with purpose,
Yeah,
whether it be
it's
with
just
purpose.
her.
She would
She
never
was
just go
raised.
randomly.
It's just the way it's right.
Yes,
It's like somebody who was raised in an abusive family. usually, sadly,
Uh-huh.
psychologically, people repeat that abuse because that's the only thing they know. You know, if
Exactly.
they, so it's like that's often what people
Hmm.
forget about that. And like I say, within the context, she does more good than harm. It just happens mostly off screen. That's the problem.
And then not only that, no, and then not only that, another thing I want to point out is like because, like I said, it's like, you know, uh, great name. I forgot what I was gonna say because you got carried away. No, it's like it's the thing is she does is like like I said, that's just kind of all she knows. And then again, she, great name. I forgot what I was gonna say. Damn it. No, but no, but great. No, but like I said, it's like the thing about her is that one thing you can say is that like she like everything like for example, if Denji would have never had Pochita and shit, and then that shit would happen, she would just left Denji alone because she wouldn't see a reason why she should, kill him or anything like that. She wouldn't see why she should. You see, because she, like I
Yeah,
said, she's not some just mindless murderer like Zaz from Batman who likes to stab people for fun. Like, nah, she don't do that kind of shit. Everything she does is for with a purpose and pragmatic reasons, not just for the sake of it. That's not really her style.
yeah,
Because yeah, because for example, like look for example, she did kill Aki and Power, but she left Kobeni and Himino alone because she didn't see no purpose to that. You see what I'm saying? Like she didn't see no purpose to that. So it's
yeah,
like you can't really say she's just going around doing shit for shits and giggles. It's like nah, because she saw that would traumatize Denji. Of course, that's obviously a bad reason, but
yeah,
yeah, that's the reason why she did that. But again, like I said, the way she operate was more about what was efficient, not really just so much of stuff. Like I said again, which again, like I mentioned before, I guess we'll get into more when we talk about the other one that we're going to get to.
yeah.
Any more stuff you want to say about any more stuff you want to say about her and the shit that went on in the canon version?
No, I think we did everything yesterday because, like I said, it's a simple thesis. When I did my original essay on my blog, which was shut down, I was focusing more on like the consequences of her actions within the setting. Like I say, it takes place in a historical alternative history 1990 Japan. Like, what if in a place where Nazis, slow onset asthma, AIDS, and World War One never happened? I was focusing more what are the historical consequences of that. And like I said, it went to a weird enough a more like socialistic world and closer to world peace, which was what she wanted to begin with.
Well, oh, that's another thing too. That's another thing too. Like I want to point out is that like another thing I want to say is that again, when people talk about Makima, like I mentioned before, they focus way too much. I mean, again, we're not condoning any abuse, but it's like okay, we agree what she did to Genji was fucked up, but I noticed that people mostly just focus on that, and then they focus too much on the control stuff, like too much of her manipulation stuff. They just focus on that,
Yeah,
which I'm just like that, which brings me to another thing is like again I acknowledge the bad thing she's done, but at the same time if you're just gonna act like she's just straight up evil and like okay that's where I have to stop you right there because it's not like that at all. Because again she was shaped to be a weapon, and then unfortunately some people would try to treat that like a cheap excuse, but that's where I'm going to get into another thing like with Shadow. You have the video of what I was telling you about with the other version of Shadow from I hate to go with this continuity, but Sonic Boom, where because that version of Shadow, he's essentially a shadow of Maria, which basically like here's like the thing. My thing is that one thing you guys have to understand is that the only reason why, and this is just comparison between her and Shadow, is like the only reason why Shadow is gone down a good path in the first place is because of Maria. Because without Maria, he wouldn't see why he should care. Then he wouldn't see Rouge as his friend. He would just see her as expendable. Because again, Shadow 2, he was shaped to be a weapon. Because like I said, here's the perfect parallel here of the whole video. It's like Maria, I mean, Makima was shaped to be a weapon. Xiao was shaped to be a weapon. The only difference is that Xiao had Maria to save him from becoming that monster, and Makima didn't, even though that's what she wants. And then that's why she did, end up becoming what she did in the canon version. I'm not saying it makes it okay. I'm saying that that's what led to these bad results. And then unfortunately, that's when things got uglier. Because
yeah,
she's lacking that one thing that she actually wants. And Shadow, like I said, because hell, I remember one part of Shadow's dialogue. He even admits that if he never would have met Maria, he'd be worse than Black Doom. He even admits that he'd be worse than Black Doom. Because that's another thing too. Is like Shadow. One thing he has in common with Makima is that even in his origin, people feared him, just like how people fear her. They see him as a tool. They use Shadow. And the same thing Makima has. People come to her for motivations or ulterior motives. The only difference is that, like I said, the one person that didn't treat him like that was Maria. She treated him like a person. And that is like how other people treating him. and really and truly, Shadow is just simply the reflection of Makima if she met the right kind of person. Because okay, this is where I have to go into, and I really hate to go to this topic, but ugh, like the whole like especially with the explanation of what happened in the 96 chapters with the Denji situation is that look, okay, like I even asked you this question, and I'm pretty sure if I even asked any other Chainsaw Man fan this the same question, they're gonna tell me the same thing. Is that Denji may have cared about Makima, but he doesn't care enough to like what is she like, or to be emotionally available. You see what I'm saying? Like even when he's being verbally affectionate, that's when she's not around. So he's already being asked backward about the whole thing.
Yeah, it's
And
like I
two,
say, like
yeah,
Denji is like
like
he
like
had a
he's
crush. He had a crush on Makima, but he never
yes,
really did
yes,
anything to do it. Like best case
not
scenario,
really.
best cases he's just horny. Worst cases
That's about
he
it.
he reinforced the negative aspects of Makima that she really doesn't want to have. You know, if
dude, he literally wanted to be treated like a dog. And to make it even worse, is that he's immune to control because of him being connected to Pachita. So at that point, you can't even blame her for that behavior. That's on him.
yeah,
Great. And here's a fucked up thing. He's the victim, but yeah, okay. See, that's something about Denji. I might as well get into real quickly. Is that yes, he's a victim, but here's another problem with that. Can you like I can ask you this question? Can you really say decisions he make in even in his situation, Makima, and his victimization, were any of the decisions really all that great or made him look all that great? You see what I'm saying?
yeah, it didn't look great. It doesn't help that Denji by holding a mission where he's like, I want you to turn me like a mindless dog, which again was
You
like
see, you see what
that
I'm talking about?
that was the last thing
You see what I'm talking about?
he could have said that because will reinforce like the
Exactly.
inferiority of certain people. But like I said, she still respect certain individuals, right? It's just Denji's
Right.
not one of them, you know.
Let's be honest, season 9. No, because that's another problem too with Denji is that, like I said again, he may be a victim, but decisions he make don't make him look all that great in his own turmoil, even in the aftermath, and even in part two, even there he's even more open about the whole wanting to have sex thing. Because like I said, the problem with Denji mainly is the fact that, like you just said, if anything, the most you'll just get from him is just him being horny, but that's not helping her situation or his situation. And then what also doesn't help is that like again, I don't want to make it sound like it's his fault. But what I'm saying is, it's like there's certain parts where he's not making the right decision because you can't tell me he's making the right decision by like I said, for instances where again, like you already mentioned, like he want to be treated like a dog, but then you're essentially just reinforcing how she already thinks. That's not helping anything. It's
Yeah,
like you want to be treated like one, but then because and that's another problem too. He's worshipping her. You see what I'm saying? Like decisions like that, he's worshipping her. You're just further enforcing how she already thinks, man. You're not helping that. You're not like I said. The decisions that he make don't help him too much. Instead of looking at her like a person, he look at her too much like I hate to use this example, but he's essentially being like he's essentially being like the Hal Roxanne situation where if anyone watched that movie, Mega Mind is like he like again he might care about her, but he don't care enough to really like connect with her. You know what I'm saying? Like caring about what is she like? Because like I hate to say, like I already said mentioned before, if someone were to ask him what is she like, what's her favorite hobbies, or or anything like that, I don't really think he has much of an answer. Let's be honest. I don't really think he thought too much about that.
no,
And then what doesn't even help, unfortunately, it's going to sound like a roasted Denji, but it's just that, like I said, and all the time he's been around her, he never, like I said, he cares about her, but he doesn't try to like do anything like, let me try to win her heart, or let me try to set a positive, imprint. Actually, I'm going to go this far with this. For example, like I said, let me ask you another question. Does Denji influence Maki's life in any kind of way? I'm talking about like, as the relation dynamic goes, as far as that goes,
no,
and the things that they've done.
that's a no.
You see what I'm saying? Like that's the problem with Denji. It's like he's just kind of there. Like I said, he might care, but does he care enough? Because like here's another problem, even in the aftermath. Bless you. Here's another problem in the aftermath is that him complaining about she pretending like he mattered. But here's the counter argument to that. Is like if someone asks him, it's like, did you care? Yes, but did you care enough to really like try to go out of your way to create a bond with her? And so that way you two would actually have something there you can say that oh, you're emotionally available, and that open up to that. The moment the answer is no, then you can't really entirely put that on her. That's a little bit on him too.
Yeah,
Because it's gonna be weird to say like because for example, I'm also use Adora from example from the Rashiva reboot. Was Catra abusive to Adora? Yes, but Adora tried to create. She tried to make it right with Catra. Can you say didn't you try to make anything right with Makima?
Yeah, like no, like I said, the problem is like
You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, and
you
I
see what I'm
think
saying? Like
it,
that's
for me it like because the story continues after chapter 96. For me, it should have ended chapter 96 because then his story is basically done. And he has been
pretty much
basically a side character in the secondary part of the story, but then he went came back as the main character at the end.
secondary.
Yeah, and
I don't know why, but it
and
will
the
fucking figure.
and the author basically lost the plot. You know, like where he
Pretty
doesn't know
much.
what he's doing with the story.
Pretty much.
If it ended at chapter
Not really.
96, I think people will complain less about Denji as a character. You know,
Probably.
because yeah, he was horny in the first part of the story, right? But you can argue, oh, you know, if the just a horny teenager end of the story, right? But after what happened, part one, you think he changed, right? But
Not really.
he
Not really.
he has a change at all. You know, you can't.
Yeah, he's even more open. He's even more open about it in part two about him wanting to get laid. I'm like, oh my god, is that literally the only thing you think about? Shit. Because like, look, I like titties and sex too, but shit, that's not the only thing that's on my mind. Shit, with him, it's almost like that's literally the only thing his mind's wired to. It's like, don't wonder why you got manipulated because you're not thinking about anything else but just that. Don't wonder why you got manipulated.
Yeah,
Oh man, that just sounds bad, but it's kind of true, sadly.
yeah, it's what it is.
No, because like I said, no, because and I hate to say this too, but I must point this out right now. Here's another thing that kind of looks hypocritical when he was going against Makima's idea of a perfect world. So you're against her trying to create world, her version of world peace, but yeah, you weren't against wanting to be treated like a pet by her. I mean, that's kind of hypocritical if you ask me.
Well, at least
That's kind of hypocritical.
at least in Denji's defense, he didn't know about Makima's true plan, and two, because he was working with the government. You know, well, he didn't choose to technically, but like the government
Not
told her,
really.
"Oh, she's a
Not
big
really.
threat. We need to stop her." And he doesn't really know the whole truth. Well, most characters don't know like what's really going on behind the
Not
scenes, right?
really.
So you can't
Not really.
I can't really blame Denji and the other character. It's just accidentally
Yeah, but
they're in the bad guy
Y-
side.
but- Yeah, but here's the problem with that. Here's the problem with that. He still kind of miss being treated like a pet. So I hate to say it, but that kind of stinks because he kind of miss being treated like a pet a little bit. It's like, okay, well, you're not helping anything, dude. You're not helping anything.
Yeah,
Because like part of him is like deep down, he kind of does miss that. So it's like, despite what happened afterwards, it's like, well, yeah, that kind of still stands then. If he still kind of deep down desires that a little bit. So I mean, I'm just saying. Then it's
yeah,
kind of still being somewhat hypocritical, but
yeah, basically.
it's like because I mean, like I said, the decisions that because like in the second person after him, they kind of cared about Makima as Aki, but again, same problem. Which is another thing I want to get into is like I mentioned before, like kind of like how even like I'm going to use this example again with Shadows, like even after like in I forget which game, of course, where Omega is like revealing that in the future he's the one that has to like take out Shadow because the world still fears him. And then, like I said, Rouge even says a line like, even if the world turns against him, she'll still stand by him and tells him to remember that. And he says he will. Like I said, like Rouge, she'll go out of her way to connect with Shadow. And again, same thing with Omega, but Makima doesn't have anything like that going for her. Like I said, Denji and Anki do care, but they don't care enough to like let me try to get closer to her on a personal level. You see what I'm saying? Because like I said, we can acknowledge we don't deny the trauma and the codependency she done with Denji, but then we look at purely the relationship dynamic only, and then just look at the fact that, like I said, the fact that he never tried to really go out of his way to connect with her, even though like I mentioned before, we complain about her not really giving a shit. It's like that's kind of where he fails.
Pretty
It's
much.
like I said, yes, on one hand, because yes, on one hand, you have the other person who's pretending to care, but yeah, you have the other person who cares, but not enough to really go out of their way to do anything. So then that's kind of where it falls flat. Like the best way to describe his relationship with Makima is basically he's on the other side of that locked door, and so is she. He doesn't knock, so she never answers. That's essentially their relationship.
Pretty
Like
much.
that's essentially their relationship, and I'm pretty sure any other Chainsaw Man fan wouldn't deny that. Like yeah, that's pretty much their relationship. Like because like I said, the problem is that she doesn't have, like I said with Shadow's examples, like she doesn't have anybody that would go out of their way to connect with her or to like treat her other than being admired or being treated like a god, but just treated like a person.
Yeah.
Because like I said, and then the problem, and then I hate to go this route again, but it's like the problem with Denji too is that even as a victim, the decisions that he make don't exactly help him out because then he basically just again he contributed to her mindset and then He's too busy seeing her like a god. He's just like the idea of being with her, but as far as like trying to get to know her or understand her, he doesn't really go that far. You know what I'm saying? Like it does not. It's very limited. I hate to say that, but his caring with her is kind of limited. I hate to put it that way, but it kind of is. It's like like that's kind of what the problem is. Even though he has a crush on her, but it's not like he's going out his way to really connect with her. So it's like, okay, yeah, that doesn't help anything. And then from that perspective, that kind of looks kind of bad on his part a little bit. Well, maybe a little bit more, but yeah, it's like that's where it fails. And then with Aki, it's like same thing. It's like, yeah, he's not really going out of his way to do anything. The only
Yeah,
two people that kind of care and they still fail to do what Rouge did is like I said, why is it? Like I said, that's what I'm talking about with the whole comparison with Makima and Shadow. Is that, like I said, Shadow, like I said, without the Maria figure, then he'll, like I said, then he would see Bruce as expendable. And like I said, Shadow, the whole point with him is like he's surrounded by people that will go out of their way. That's why that's what keeps him as attached Shadow, not detached Shadow. And in canon version, you get detached Makima because she doesn't have anyone that would turn her into attached Makima. You know, where she wouldn't see people as pets or where she wouldn't see people as just tools to be disposed of when she no longer has use for them. And like I said, I know some people unfortunately just look at her like she's just pure like young Greyjoy, but the thing is that again she was shaped to be a weapon, much like how Shadow was shaped to be a weapon. And again, the only difference is that he's a reflection of her. If she met the right kind of person. Unfortunately, no offense to Denjiraki, and she's just a reflection of Shadow if he never met Maria. So then you're just stuck with the detached version of one another. And like I said, in that of all things that happened to the 96 chapters, like I said, all that time, really and truly, considering that Denji was also immune to her control because of him be connected to Bachita, he basically had the opportunity to change her, but he didn't because again, he's too busy thinking about boobies and sex. So it's like, well, he's too distracted by that.
pretty much.
And the sad part is about that. The sad part is about him is that despite his circumstance, he basically just I hate to say it, but he's basically like it's not even just her that he acts like that with. Any girl he has a crush on, with the exception of Riza, and even Argus circumstantials, like he'll like them, but he won't go out of his way to like really connect with them. And I'm like, so how does that work? Which another thing, which is another thing that don't make sense to me with his characterization. Which another thing that don't make sense to me with his character is like you want Michael's approval, but yet you're not going your way of connecting with her. Wouldn't that be basically creating what you want? Like he's so ass backward. I swear. I swear. It's like that's like me. That's like me. That is like me being excited to wanting to, you know, basically go out on a date with this girl, but yet I'm not doing anything to make that possible. It's like, so how do you expect this to work? How does that work? That's what I want to know. How does that work? It's like I don't understand.
Don't ask me. Like I said, it's like the author of Chainsaw Man, right? For some reason, I just forgot his name right now. He is not known to,
Fujimoto.
yeah, Fujimura. He is not known for making stories, like story-driven manga. He is known for making like crazy ass visuals. Like similar to like something similar like to Baki or JoJo, for example.
I can see that.
You don't watch it for the plot. You watch it for
You watch it for other stuff.
you watch it for the insane characters, the art style, the action sequences, anything except the writing itself. You know, and because Chainsaw Man
Right.
is one of the least crazy works he does, right? It's one of the very few,
Part one
yeah,
until
and it's one of the very
we go to part two.
well, fair enough. And it's one of the very few ones that actually tries to make a plot, right? And the first part was actually pretty decent. Once
Right.
after he finished chapter 96, but for me they should have ended there because Denji's story
Pretty
basically
much.
had a definitive end right there, right? And
Pretty much.
the
Pretty much.
the second part had a good start with basically a new main character, Asa and Yoru, right? But eventually it lost the plot and doesn't know what it's doing with it anymore. And now we know it's ending soon. Even though they just introduced the Death Devil, now we know they gotta end the story. They gotta put the last part. So I'm like,
That
what the
doesn't even make that doesn't even make sense. We just got did we barely even see Famine here and there. She'll appear like what 2 panels, and now we're already having an ending. Like okay, he don't know what the fuck he's doing. He fucking up his own parts. Part two has already gotten terminated because he don't know what the fuck he's doing. What the fuck was that?
yeah.
Like What was he trying to achieve with part two? Like, if you ask someone what part two was about, what would you even tell them? And I've read a bit of part two, and even I'm like, okay, now even I'm lost because once we go to Chainsaw Man Church, that is where the shit goes downhill from there. And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Uh-huh.
Like, I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Hey, that's what it is. Like I'm not gonna criticize the author too much because, like I said, that's not his strong suit. Like writing, like
that's not his. Yeah, that's not his style. I know.
narrative-driven story is not his strong suit. If you want to read the manga that is more just random shit, well, I don't say that is a negative thing, but you just wanted entertainment, just pure entertainment. So there's Chainsaw Man, there's Baki, there's JoJo Bizarre Adventure. You're in it not for the story. Let's be honest, you're not in it for the story. Yeah, you're in it for the
I mean,
wackiness that happens.
I mean, to be honest, excuse, bless you. No, but part six has a story of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure with Jolene.
I mean,
I mean, you can say that one does.
technically, yeah, but we're talking about part six. Like after multiple volumes, because let's
Or
be honest, like for the most part, like when we talk about JoJo, if I spoiler, you're not gonna understand what the fuck. I can spoil the entire story of JoJo, and still doesn't make any sense. You can still be surprised. You're like, oh, I didn't watch it after
I
I
mean,
spoiled it.
I watched the one with Josuke. I mean, shit. I mean, I got halfway into it. I mean, I understood what they were going for, so at least I can say that. But
You know
as far as like I remember a lot of people said that part two was kind of boring. Even I will admit I wasn't all that invested in part two of JoJo. And
that.
then when we go to part six, I'm like, okay, part six has a good like overall plot at the end. Like I
Yeah,
understand like what they were going with. Like at least I can say with that one, at least I didn't lose the plot. Unlike what happened with Chainsaw Man Part Two, is like I didn't lose the plot, but
yeah.
I understand what you're saying. Like I think what you're getting at is it's a little convoluted. I think that's what you're trying to get at.
I
Like it's a
mean,
little convoluted,
like I said, with the
but
JoJo,
at the
like I
same
said,
time, at least
like
is
the first three parts are not the bad.
like
Well, they're not bad. I'm not saying they're bad, right?
no, they're
They're
not
very
bad. Yeah, they're
like
not bad.
nobody's gonna say unless you're most critical. Nobody's gonna say that part one is their favorite, right? Usually it's like either part three, four, and five. For me, it's part four. If
I
people
would
will
say
say
part one's okay. I would say part one. No, I was thinking part three. Now I would say part one is okay. Part two is good. Part three is the one I was like, okay, I'm not as invested with part three. And then we go to part four with. I mean, okay, I did like part four with Josuke. I mean, I was intrigued with to it. Then part five comes in, and oh, that's Jolie. My bad. Or is it part six? I'm confused now. No,
uh,
but like I said, it's like all these parts. No,
it,
but Jolene is like I understood where they were going with that. Like I can understand the direction. Like it may be convoluted, but it didn't lose the plot. That's the whole point. Like it got convoluted, but it didn't lose it. It still has a direction.
yeah,
As
yeah, yeah.
unfortunately with some other stuff,
But
it's
like
like
I said,
yeah.
Chainsaw Man, Baki, JoJo is one of those series where the plot itself is not really the priority. It's, it's the wackiness of the situation, right? You don't watch Baki for the story. It's like, oh, what is the overarching story of Baki? It's just big, buff, oily men fighting. Okay, that's all you need to know.
I mean, people, and King and Ashura. People watch that too for the fights. And that's what it's about. But hey, at least it has something still going for it. Even the author said he doesn't have any plans on ending it anytime soon. So it's like, hey, it's just about the fights. Who knows? Maybe one of these days we might get a new plot. But for now, it's just about the fights. So
Yeah,
this is what it boils down to. It's like it's just about the fights. So hey, at least there's that.
yeah. Like I
It's
said,
not just like
it's one
at
of
least
those
that's something.
it's one of those cases where, for me, it's like from a business perspective, it's easier to write those types of stories like Baki, Jojo, and stuff because you're just writing like wacky scenarios, right? You're not here sitting trying to think logically or at least trying your best, right? Okay, how am I gonna continue the plot? How can I make it make
Right.
sense? Yeah, it takes more
Right.
effort, right? If you're already good at drawing, you just want to draw two buff ass men buff fighting each other, which is Bucky in general. It's easier to do that. It's like doesn't matter what the plot is. You just want to watch Yujiro Hama kicking Muhammad Ali's son's ass for no reason.
Mhm.
you know,
Or it's more of the fact. or it's more the fact that it's like you see Yujiro like putting one of the leaders in their place, the political leaders. Oh crap! I don't even want to get to that other
Yeah, no, 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 no.
video
I think we should
that
avoid that
specifically
one.
talked about. Okay, just forget about it. Forget about it. No, but like I said, the thing is with Yujiro is that is this is gonna be about like who's gonna be the next fire. Because I remember one guy was talking about the next chapter is about his other son Jack Hama wants to challenge his dad so he can be the strongest or he can be considered the world's strongest like creature or take his dad's title. And so far, I remember in that one other panel where he did beat Pickle, which he did struggle Pickle in the beginning. So it's like, okay, he did beat one dude, which is kind of weird because I remember on the wiki he said that Pickle's technically stronger than Yujiro. It's just that Yujiro has more skills, and I
Yeah,
don't know how far Pickle's skills have gotten so far ever since he's been introduced. So I'm like, I don't know what to make of that, but yeah, I mean, he's been there for a minute. Plus, he's been acting more human than cavemanish. But then again, he has no choice. He's in the civilized civilization, not in the jungle. So this isn't Doctor Stone, like it's like it's just basically yeah, the chapters are pretty much like who's gonna fight next. So yeah, but no, but like I said, the thing was with Chainsaw Man. Great, now we're getting off the topic. The thing is with Chainsaw Man, like I said, it's like we're both talking about like the comparison between Makima and Shadow is like I said, like I mentioned before, is like Shadow without like I said, the Sonic Boom continuity version has a Shadow that doesn't have Maria, and he's more antagonistic in that storyline. Like I already showed, like I already sent you the link to that thing of his dialogue and the shit that he says when because he doesn't value friendship when he tells them talking about him and his friends are weak, which like I said, it's not something that attached Shadow would say if he had Maria. So like
yeah,
it's one of those things where it's like you know he's just a prime example of that, which like I said again like we were both talking about, it's like people focus too much more on the abuse that she done to Denji, which again I get that, but it's a much broader picture than just focusing on that if you look at the bigger context, because then it basically shows you what builds up to those moments, which like we mentioned before, and them focusing too much on the control thing, which like I said, it's like like I said, when you look at both of them, it's like they're like, 'cause I find it so weird that the perfect foil to her isn't in Chainsaw Man; it's in the Sonic franchise. How ironic is that? It's like I said, she shaped to be a weapon. He shaped to be a weapon. The only difference is that he had Maria to prevent him from becoming what Gun wanted to be, and Makima didn't have anybody to prevent her from becoming what the government wanted her to be. You know, like that's the perfect parallel. I feel like that would be better, like for folks to at least acknowledge that than just focusing on purely the bad shit. Doesn't even help there was one video talking about she can't be fixed. Like she can be fixed. It's just she doesn't have that. Like I mentioned before, she doesn't have that one person that would go out of her way to really make a difference to her, truly make a difference to her, and then would see that, the things that she wanted from the Chainsaw Devil, that was just her projecting her idea of what she wanted, not really so much of like actually having a real connection, you know? And now you quiet over here like a mouse and just let me take over your video for you now, aren't you? It's like,
no, 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 it's fine because
it's just
you're
like,
transitioning with the Sonic Shadow and Makima parallels. But
yeah, because I mean, no, because like I said, with the Sonic Boom, which I hate to reference that one because I don't even like Sonic Boom. The show was whack. But the only thing I can say that was good was the portable game. Everything else sucked ass with the PlayStation shit. But no, but no, the point is that like I said, that version of Shadow doesn't have Maria, so he's more antagonistic. And then, like I said, it even gets to where he legit wants to pretty much again even use people and then to be more self-serving. Which, like I said, that's basically him. If he doesn't have that guidance to prevent him from becoming that way, because in that version he's essentially detached Shadow. Well, like I said, the Shadow we have is attached Shadow, so it's like that's why he sees that again. Like I said, that's why because another thing I can point out too is that even with Maria's influence, he might find Sonic to be annoying, but he still respects him as a person because Maria showed him kindness and true compassion. He sees that in Sonic, so he still respects Sonic because of that. That's why they're on good terms. Whereas the Boom version doesn't have that, so clearly he's not on good terms with Sonic, and doesn't really see him anything more than just an obstacle in his way. And like I said, he's essentially what Gunn wanted to be in that continuity. And it would also help if you will also be talking about this with me too, so I don't feel like I'm the only one that's doing this video alone. It's like because which is like again with Makima, that's essentially what happened, because any Makima that would have had a redemption arc before meeting Denji, she would see him as a person. Maybe not a bright person, but she would still see him as a person. it's like it's like she would still at least see him as that. And then, like I said, when it boils down to that, that's what that comes to. It's
Oh
just
yeah,
that all the hate around that is just too much of just focusing purely on the other aspect of having the story, but not focus on the other aspect of like, okay, because then it's not really a balanced look if you just focus on the other shit. And like I said, in her case, it's like, she's essentially Shadow if you never met Maria, and then he's him, and that's basically and him. He's basically blah, and then him. He's that's basically her if she met the right kind of person, because otherwise, then she's just gonna be stuck being attached Makima. Because like you just said yourself, she don't want to be attached Makima. It's just that being attached is all she knows.
yeah,
And like I said, all the bad things she done, she didn't do that out of joy. She did that because she thought it was efficient. Because again, she's conditioned to look at people as nothing but expendable. So that's why she had the contract with the prime minister, because again, she's seen people as expendable. And that's why, like I said, I know that doesn't look too good, but like I said, that's because of that. But one thing you can say is that you can't put the whole weapon thing on her at all, because that's how she was shaped to be. And like I said, again, the same parallels. It's like,
yeah.
because if
Even
there was
then,
a which I did.
even despite all that, despite being raised with the weapon, she still wanted world peace. She still wanted family. She still wanted all
Pretty
those things.
much, pretty
Despite
much,
despite in an upbringing,
pretty much.
despite having an upbringing where she wouldn't develop those things, but she did anyway. Which shows her more of a character as a devil that she still has enough empathy and altruism that developed that despite the upbringing compared to fucking Homelander.
Pretty much.
Who is clearly
Homelander is a whole nother story.
yeah, who is clearly a psychopath. Because he could have been a genuine superhero, but they raise him as a weapon, and he treats everybody as basically an inferior species because of it.
No, but that's nothing about Homelander. He's a whole entire other ballpark. It's like the problem with Homelander is that he has too much of an ego. In him, he doesn't want affection like Mike. He just wants attention. So he can't really save him, because he's just too lost into that mindset that he's in at the moment. And then, yeah, like you already said, he is a psychopath because he'll just kill folks randomly, or just purely out of impulsive behavior, or just because he just feels like it. Well, at least Mike didn't do that. I mean, like I said, everything she every even if it was a good thing, everything she did was with like pragmatism. He just do shit just because he feels like it, or just because he wants to, not really because there's any real purpose to it. So Homelander is completely a wild card.
Pretty
So it's
much.
like, if that's another
It,
one. That's
it's
another one that's raised as a weapon, but he went out of control with it though.
oh yeah, it doesn't help that he has some severe mental health issue. Like literally, if you go to any like superhero weakness, his own
Oh
mental
no.
health. It's like literally
See,
demonstrating
that's
so
another
much.
thing. See, that's another thing that's weird too. Now that I think about it, it's like Makima, like you mentioned before, she may not have the best mental capacities, but she's not out of control like Homelander.
No,
Like, she's
it's just
chill.
like coming for
Like,
her
I can't say.
who may have PTSD, suicidal tendencies, suffers from addiction, has attachment issue, probably anger issue, but probably has a sociopathy and psychopathy, and despite all that, she still wants to do good things compared to Homelander, who
But you see, that's
may or may not have schizophrenia.
no. I was gonna say, like, I hate to say this, but I feel like Makima mostly fits sociopathy because she's not out of control. She's still chill. Like, she's stable. She's stable. Unlike Homelander, she's stable. So she's more of the sociopathic thing, not really a psychopathic thing.
Fair enough.
Psychopathy's out of control. She's yeah, like I said, because she's not like Homelander killing people randomly. She don't do that. Like I said, if there was a scenario where Dingy never had Pochita, and if she was around, she would just leave Dingy alone because she would see no reason to bother him. You see what I'm saying? Well,
Yes.
Homelander, he would just do shit just for shits and giggles. You see, that's the difference. So now she's more like I said, she's pragmatic in her decisions. She's not just out of control. Because you can say you know what, honestly, even despite her detached self, you can call her many things, but you can't say that she's out of control. You can't say that.
Yeah.
And you certainly can't say that you certainly can't say that she's acts crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't say that either, because she's usually very, very chill. Even if she was upset, she'd still be very, very chill about it.
Yeah.
Like, she's not. Yeah, because like I said, like I said, it's kind of hard to call her unhinged when she always keeps herself composed all the time. So it's not something you can just it's not that's not something you can call her. Sociopathic, perhaps. Machiavellianism, perhaps, but just being completely a wild card, not necessarily, not really. Homelander, on the other hand, yeah, he's not pragmatic. He just does what he wants for the giggles. He'll kill someone randomly on the street for no reason. He's done that several times. You know what I mean? It's the same dude that talking about he would destroy all the freaking city because the threatened to release the video, and I'm like, you see what I'm saying? Like he would legit go out of his way to do some shit like that, and he keeps getting more unhinged. Like now him, he's definitely unhinged. You can't say he's not.
Oh yeah.
Him, he's definitely like always, but he's like a ticking time bomb. While Makima, you can't really call her that. You know what I'm saying? Like she's not a ticking time bomb. She, like I said, it's like she's she has her shit together despite being raised to be a weapon. And like I said, the better comparison, unlike Homelander, is to compare her to Shadow, because at least Shadow, even if he did go down that dark path, he still wouldn't be out of control like Homelander either. He would still be pragmatic and efficient. That's why I chose Shadow as a comparison to her because, like I said, that mirrors more of her behavior than they would with Homelander. And it looks pretty bad that despite them turning out the way, Homelander's the only one that's really just out of control compared to those two. It's like, okay, that don't look too good on Homelander's part. Like Homelander, this like you're the only one that's literally just gonna kill people just for no reason, or should I say, just because you just want to. While them, it's more about a pragmatism. You just do it just because you just angry about it. It's like that's selfish. That's what we consider like very chaotic, very reckless. That's something that you can't say Makima is. She's not reckless, but
Correct.
yeah, it's like Homelander. Yeah, he has some issues. Well, maybe more than just some issues.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, like I said, it's like
And that
he's he.
saying that is an understatement.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, this guy he could explode at any moment. Pause. I don't know. Yeah, he could explode at any moment. Like I said, this dude's a ticking time bomb. I mean, like I said.
It only makes it funny when you say pause. If you didn't say that, I wouldn't even laugh at that. I wouldn't even think about it. Just saying pause, just act the
Okay.
funny. Just act the funny for me for no reason.
Okay, fair enough. Now, because like I said, it's like, because like I said, like I already mentioned before, yeah, she killed Aki or had Aki and Pyro kill, but like I said, she left Kobeni and him and her alone because she didn't see no purpose in that. But Homelander, he wouldn't give a shit if it's super purpose or not. So it's like, yeah, hey, at least she's more, like I said, she's more stable than him. That's all I can say. I
Oh
can't
yeah,
put them in the same boat. And when it comes to personalities, like Homelander's like a child. He's literally a man child. That's like the best way to put it about him. He's a man child, a psychopathic man child. On top of that, so
pretty much. Yeah, I think everybody can agree with
like
that. And
pretty much.
I'm sorry, people. If whoever defends Homelander and also people who defend who demonize Makima, but defend other characters who did worse within the context what we know in the story and lore. I'm sorry, I don't think you're using your logic correctly. Maybe
I mean, like I said, Makima did bad. Like Makima did do bad.
maybe I'm the dumb one,
Like
but
she
like
did
for
do.
me, I'm very confident that I'm not dumb in this case.
No, but okay, we might have to see about that. But no, but it's like the thing was with Makima one is that okay, yes, Makima did do bad, but the thing is, you can't say that she's just straight up killing people randomly left and right. No, she's not. And again, deep down, she still wanted something. Like the best way to put it with Makima is that she wanted good things, but because she was raised to be a weapon, she had a distorted way of wanting to get that. Because like I said, she was just projecting what she wanted onto the Chainsaw Devil, really and truly, not understanding how Jukin actually works. While Homelander just wants to kill every goddamn body and basically just does things just because he wants to, or just because he can, not really because it serves any real purpose. Just like when he let the people on that plane die, or just like that other time where he like literally just killed someone just because they made him mad. Or
Yeah,
he's just so quick to, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like he's very self-destructive in his behavior of just he's just ready to just explode. Like the moment someone does something or lie, and especially if someone lies to him, he hates when people lie to him. He's just about ready to kill him. Like he needs to chill. That's where even Edgar, the one who was behind Vide, even he was way more chill. He's one of the other villains. He's way more chill than Homelander. He did raise Homelander technically speaking, but yeah, he's way more chill and he's not out of control. Homelander's just a child, a psychopathic man child, and he just basically he just. I think the best way I could say is just like you just remember that one scene where he basically just out of nowhere, just every time he has like a breakdown, he would be drinking milk. Right now, every time now just in a res, every time I go get some cereal, that's what we'll be thinking about Homelander with the milk, and then him always having to release some steam, so he goes to do other shit. You know what I'm saying? Like he doesn't really handle things too well. That's all I can say. Because you already mentioned about like how Makima smokes and stuff, and her wanting to be eaten by a chainsaw devil because she's suicidal, and I think it was under depression, but Homelander is just he just can't really handle certain things, and he'll just lose his. Well, he already lost his shit. Is that he'll just go out of control with his shit. So
Yeah,
it's like, I mean, just look at how he turned out with more of the shit that happened later in the show, and then concerning how he literally laser blasted someone in the audience and thought that was okay. You see what I'm saying? Like the shit he doing is like, yeah, he's very destructive. And then him running VOD wasn't looking too good anyway, because he
yeah,
doesn't know how to run shit. So he's just a mascot that doesn't know how to be a business, manager. So, or entrepreneur for that matter.
yeah. Pretty much that's another thing. So I gotta start a business.
Yeah, at least.
Do you know how business works? No. Well, that's gonna backfire real quick. It's like,
I mean, because like one thing you can't say is like Makima knew how to run the public safety bureau. She was ahead of it, but Homelander, I mean, he doesn't even know where to even begin. Hell, like I said, him running a business, that shit gonna fall down faster than you can count. Hell, if he was the senator, he would screw that up. Or if he was the prime minister, he would screw that up. It's like, okay, yeah, he is gonna make this country go down even further than it already is.
yeah, pretty much.
That's all I can say. It's
At
like,
least in the comic, if the that he is more obviously evil, like very unstable, right? While in the show, what makes
right,
it more scary that despite being a psychopath, if the an unpredictable psychopath, he still has some level of intelligence. It's not a person you can easily manipulate or a person you can easily fool,
right,
right? So what makes it scary that he can still calculate despite
pretty much,
despite his mental health, compared to the comic where he is like the part being a man child is more obvious,
pretty much.
you know. If they go in the show, is he is more terrifying in the show than in the comic, although both are pretty terrifying in the context.
Mhm. Yeah, pretty much because Homelander, yeah, in the show he has more smarts. Well, in the comic he's more dumbed down. Like he'll do things like in the show they even imply that okay, I can't go that direction because you're gonna get lag. Okay, never mind. Basically Homelander in the show he do shit, he knows what's doing, but in the comic he gets manipulated into some of the abuse that he does. So there's that.
Yeah,
And then not to mention, like you would just mention in the show, he at least show. I mean, what it is too, honestly, another thing I want to point out about him is that he's just being lazy. Like he can be brilliant but lazy. Because especially for him not even trying to understand how to work his powers, he's even lazy with the way he uses his powers. So
yes,
that's another problem with Homelander. Like he doesn't try to hone his abilities to their full capacity. He just basically relies way too much on his laser vision for shit. Because just imagine if you do put him against opponents that actually can kick his ass. Especially like with Soldier Boy when he was actually worried about him because he saw he could kick his ass. It's like put him against someone like Senator Armstrong. Yeah, he's gonna get his ass whooped because he relied way too much on laser vision. And then it's like, well, he has to do was like outmaneuver him, and he would know how to fight him. While Homelander just he doesn't really have like he's strong, but he's not skilled. He doesn't have any skills compared to that.
that he doesn't know how to fight like at all. Like
Yeah,
the few times we
like
see
I
him
said,
fight, he just push, punch. But for the most part, like compared to like all the other characters, like Soldier Boy, who is an actual soldier, that he fought in
well,
World
he
War Two,
trained.
like he fought in World War Two,
Yeah,
and he was like doing Black Ops operations during the Cold War. So like he has actual like military government experience, right?
yeah, he
Compared to
does.
compared to
Yeah,
Homelander and I forgot her name, who's supposed to be like the Wonder Woman ripoff, the you
Queen
know
Maeve.
yeah, she has more skill set than Homelander as well. Like she
Yeah,
actually tried to learn, she tried to use some moves here and there, dude. So like at least she bothered to learn something. Despite being
right.
technically speaking like the second strongest besides Homelander, although saying the second is not saying they're equal. Like there is a huge gap between the two. It's like the fucking
Yeah,
My Hero Academia with All Might versus the guy I forgot the name who's like a fire.
Endeavor,
Yeah, he is.
Endeavor.
Endeavor is technically second, but the gap between
Mm-hmm.
second and first is like way too big that it's not even funny.
Yeah, the gap's way too big. Despite being second, it's like that second's just more of like the kind of stuff that they achieve rather than the power scale. So that's what that's really about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then All Might was pretty strong, so it's like yeah, there's a huge gap between that.
Oh yeah, definitely. They
And
see
plus,
how it
now that I think
goes.
about it, and plus now that I think about it, it's like that's another thing to acknowledge. Is like some of the ones that actually has ow, some of the ones that actually have like the potential to be next to the ones that's considered the strongest in their world, it's like, yeah, they don't have, like, they're not really that close. It's one of those weird things where it's like, yeah, he's strong, but clearly he still has things that he can do that he can't do. For instance, like what I actually kind of forget what the other stuff Homelander. I actually forget the other stuff that All Might could do with when he had one for all. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when he had one for all, it's like, yeah, he had the super strength and all that stuff, and he could do a lot of damage, but he had like a time limit with that form that he would be in.
Yeah.
But the feats that he pulled off were pretty like, he's like, well, look at Endeavor's abilities. He could burn things at subatomic level. So it's
Yeah.
like it's one of those things, but at the same time, like for example, when we first saw him fighting those Nobus, like like you could see he could hold his own against them. He could still handle him.
Yeah.
But when we look at Endeavor, the way he would handle him, it's like he kind of had to use all his power on just one, and he permanently had a scar in his like that went down to his eye because of how much he had to exhaust his abilities. So yeah,
Yeah.
you can kind of clearly tell the difference when it comes to that example. But yeah, yeah, I feel like anything else you want to add with what we were doing with the topic, especially when we were talking about the whole Makima and Shadow comparison.
Mm, not much really. They will be kind of repeating my original thesis, but just add the shadow part.
Pretty much. I mean, I already pointed out the whole Shadow Makima thing, so
Yeah.
because like I mentioned before, I just noticed that people focus too much on the abuse of Denji, and then they act like that's the only thing that happened. But like, nah, it's much bigger than that. And then, not to mention, shit. Oh yeah, and then like I said, them focusing too much on the control thing. It's like, okay, you guys focus only on those two aspects. You don't look at the bigger shit. It's only Boomstick and what's his name and another YouTuber I remember where it's like at least they point out she wanted a family and stuff like that or wanted good things, but just she has a distorted way of wanting to get to it. Well, because you know what, actually, that's one thing I'm always point out. The last thing to point out with Michael is that even if she did have a redemption arc, she would still want to create world peace. She would just go about it. She would just go about it differently. That's the only difference. Like she
That
would
is
still be
correct.
pursuing that goal.
Yeah,
It
that
would
that
just
is
be,
right.
it would just be, yeah, it just wouldn't be Machiavellianism. That's the only difference. It just wouldn't be Machiavellianism. So like that wouldn't stop her from still going for a goal because like I said, it was never bad to begin with. It's just the way she goes about it. That's all. It's just the way she goes about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would just be like that. Which, like I mentioned before, again, another last example I can make with Shadow is like, even if Shadow wanted something good, even if he didn't have Maria, even if he wanted something good, then he would just be like her having a distorted way wanting to get it. So it's like it would just be like pretty much like that. So
Yeah.
it would just you know like I mentioned before, same parallels. It's like he's not quite sure how to get that himself. So because one thing I can say, because I know this entire time he kept saying how she's not truly, the bad one. Is like one thing I can say in common with that versus Shadow and her is like they're not inherently evil. It's just all they know is being attached. So then that's all they can go by. Because the bad things that they be doing wouldn't be out of any emotional attachment to it or anything like that, or even just to out of spite. It's just more of like they think that's efficient. That's the only reason why. Because again, they're shaped to be weapons. So then they're like they do that because they think that's efficient, not because this gives them some kind of pleasure. So then that's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Which like I said is like I feel like that's the main thing that other people tend to ignore. But that's why I thought about bringing that up because I'm like, well, that is like the perfect comparison. So I'm like, might as well bring it up
Pretty much.
because yeah, because like I said, the perfect foil. Looking at that, that's that's how I look at her. Because like I told you, because I told you that before, that when I look at her more like just Shadow about having Maria in the picture is like, well, that's how I play it. Because like I said, even in the aftermath, what happened in part one and how that ended with her reincarnation to Yuto is like me. I just look at like me. I don't look at it like oh, we finally just dose this motherfucker. I look at it more like just like this is just her if she doesn't get that shit. Because like I mentioned before, if she would have redemption arc before meeting Denji, then the shit that happened wouldn't have happened. You see, then he would still have Aki in power. So like that's how I look at it. It's like, well, then that wouldn't have happened. Then
Oh yeah.
it's just, yeah, it's just like I said. This is her when she doesn't have that attachment, even though she does want it, but she just doesn't get it in the canon version. That's what that boils down to.
Pretty much.
And yeah, because like I said again, she's just Shadow. Like I said, even if Shadow in that version where he never met Maria didn't, even if he did want something good like that, he would still have a distorted way of wanting to get it. So that's the problem. Like then he would just, like I said, he would just be like her. Like that's what that boils down to.
Yeah.
Because like you already mentioned before, but to be honest, I don't think anybody's really defending Homelander because people know that Homelander's just out of control and his goals don't really sound too positive either. So I don't think anybody's really defending Homelander too much. It's
Hopefully.
like
But because it's the internet, yeah, there's always that one subsection of
I doubt it.
positivity.
I doubt it because yeah, but I doubt it because if you put that person as a defendant, what are they gonna say in his defense?
I don't
You see
know
what I'm
because
saying? Because
I'm
he
not one
just
of those people.
is Because no, because he, like you said, he has speciesism with humans, and then not only that, he just kind of wants to like basically run shit. He wants to take control of shit, but not for the better, or like for the worse, just to contribute to his ego. So I'm like, he doesn't have any good intentions. Like, I mean, I understand that he was ultimately raised to be a weapon, but clearly the way he was brought up is a bit different from Makima and Shadow situation. So it's like, because you don't think in terms of efficiency, you think in just like he's just out of control, and then he'll legit like kill someone just because he feels like it. So he's more out of control.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like that's the difference between Homelander and the other two is like he doesn't really have anything good in mind. So and he's too far off because he just wants attention. He doesn't want affection. So that's another problem.
Yeah.
So now he's just basically, you know, I want it and I want it now. Pause. And then him just running that just because he wants to, rule. They basically just wants to make the city just be a part of his own little great doisty thing of his ego. That's all that really is. So it's like, nah, at that point, he's not doing anything. It's the same reason like I was telling you, like, I don't think you'll catch anybody defending Euron Greyjoy because let's be honest, there's nothing to defend about that guy. Because at least with some villains,
I hope not that nobody defends your grade book because unless you're straight up like theistic Satanist pagan neo-Nazi hybrid, and I don't see a reason why you
something like
couldn't.
that,
I don't see a reason
something like that.
like,
Yeah, something like that because no,
un,
because like I
unless
said,
you're
because
a member of the fucking Order of the Nine Angles, there's no other group of people I can think of can defend him.
because no, because like I said, you're the thing. Like I said, the thing with Euron Greyjoy is like he doesn't like I said, he doesn't have like some villains have positive qualities. You know what? Since you know about the Game of Thrones books and more, name me one positive quality that Euron Greyjoy has. Name me one, even when he was a kid. Name me one positive quality he had, even up until
Yeah,
the later books.
it
Yeah, that's what I
just
thought.
it's just like that. Yeah, don't ask me. Like
That's what I'm saying.
even
Because
by the
because
books,
when
even by the book standards, like he is uniquely evil. The only other character in the Son of Ice and Fire books would be fucking the Bloodstore Emperor, but because he's like a lore only character, like 2,000 years ago, before the era of civilization, like besides that, there's no other character who's like as fucked up
because
as
like I
this guy.
said, No, because like I said, because at least with Kingpin, even the way they did him with Daredevil Born Again is like I can at least say Kingpin has positive qualities. He carries himself with class. He has charisma. He has, like I said, he carries himself in a way that actually I can honestly say like, okay, and then he does have a good side, but that's only with his family though. That's only with his family. That's the
Yeah,
only thing about Kingpin. Like
He
he can't, like he can, I can at least say this: he can be a caring person, but that's only with his family. Anybody outside that, unless they remind of his family, yeah, you're not gonna get that from him.
yeah, Kingpin
You
is one
know,
of those
like that's the thing with Kingpin.
characters that it's like he's like a contradiction, well, in a good way. Like he is a he is
Weirdly
a
enough,
yeah, he is a murderer, but he's also a family man. It's like he will do horrific
yeah, that's what
shit,
I'm saying.
but at the same time
He does
he will protect people that he actually cares about. You know, and give it the backstory. I mean, there's multiple backstories, but for most people, the best version is the Spider-Man animated series version. It's often considered like the best one. So it's like
yeah,
which is really a very fucked up backstory given it's a like a rated G cartoon
because
and he kills her dad
because
in a rated G cartoon. I'm like, it's like, bro.
damn. Damn. Well, so much for being kids show. No, but like I said, the thing with Kingpin is, like I said, at least I could say he has positive qualities about himself, and that, like I said, he carries himself with class. He knows how to approach people. He knows how to talk to people. He knows how to, like I said, you know, interact with people. Well, you're in Greyjoy. He has none of those things.
Yeah,
He has none of those things. It's just like I can't say nothing about that. Like this dude, like, oh, let's be honest. Even Kingpin would be like, "Your Greyjoy is fucked up." Even he would say that shit. Like even he's fucked up.
pretty
And I've
much.
done horrific things, but it's like you hear about the things that dude's done. It's like even I wouldn't do that, and that's pretty fucked up.
I know.
And it's like I said, it's one of those things where it's like, like another example, Sakuna from Jujutsu Kaisen. It's like Sakuna is pretty much the embodiment of evil. So yeah, there's
Yeah.
not much I can say to that. Not much I can say to that. But yeah, like I said, it's like this because me, I know, like for example, I know like you and I both were talking about the villains who actually have a chance because they're just circumstantial or because they do have the positive traits to where they could go down a good path. And then we, at the same time, we will acknowledge ones where, and especially I acknowledge ones where it's like, okay, now they literally the embodiment of evil. Like I can even tell you from Young Justice. I don't know if you watched season 4, where Clarion's one of the Chaos Lord's sister. She only answers to the Chaos Lord. She don't anybody who's not a Chaos Lord. They're insignificant to her. She doesn't have a
Yeah.
good side. Like you can't negotiate with her. So it's like no. She's like destruction is what she's gonna do. She's not gonna, you know, see any other path than just destruction. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's one of those things where it's like you have it's one of those things where I do acknowledge that, okay, they're just pretty much on the bad path 100%. Because like Deathstroke, I can at least say like Deathstroke's more of a nuanced example because he's done some good things, but he's also done bad things, of course. But at the same time, him too is it's a pragmatic approach. It's not like he's just killing people randomly because that's his job as a mercenary. But yeah, like same thing with him. It's like he's more nuanced. He's not just looking for blood. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Same thing
I
with
mean,
Lady Shiva. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, there are other characters
like
who are villains, but within the circumstances, they're victims because of the upbringing, right? Like we already mentioned
right,
Makima, right? Another good example, I think
right.
most people don't talk about. Well, at least on the internet, maybe but like Esdeath
Mm.
from a Comic Con Kill.
Esdeath,
Yeah,
Esdeath, but she's a tricky one because isn't that because of something that she got contaminated with, and that's why she's so violent or something like that?
well, there are two things in particular. The one that you just mentioned is the when she drank some type of blood. I think it's demon blood or dragon blood. I can't remember, but it was something like supernatural blood thing going on. Again, it's a fantasy setting. It's the
Fair enough.
it affects the people's personalities uh, and makes them more violent, right? It also doesn't help
Hmm.
that she was raised by her dad, who is a social Darwinist, right?
Well, that doesn't help.
And basically a eugenicist. Well, he never straight up says that, but the idea behind it, like the idea that is often
Yes,
associated with
yes.
it, right? That there are people who are inherently inferior. There are people who are not allowed to live or reproduce and stuff like that. You know, if the she grew up with her father with that mentality, right?
Pretty
And
much, pretty much.
drinking the demon blood, you know, makes her change the personality, makes more violent and bloodthirsty. But despite all that,
Right.
despite her dad and proclaiming herself as a social Darwinist, just like her father, she doesn't really follow
Hmm.
her father's philosophy. There are multiple cases throughout the story where she does the complete opposite, especially to people she actually cares about, right? If they like, usually on the
She's
guys
a
like, yeah, she goes out of her way to do the opposite, despite her self-proclamation of being a social Darwinist. And when she fell in love with the main character, like I said before, she even met the main character, she actually wanted to retire and have a husband and have a family life. And when she fell in love with the main character, she actually tried her best to actually start a loving relationship. But again, the main character already has a lot of interest, and she's on the bad guy side, so she's automatically a villain, regardless how much she tried to actually prove herself, right?
right,
If the So even that she is basically a victim of her upbringing. She actually trying to improve herself within the strange circumstances that she has, right? But she dies, and she even died still in the very last moments of her life, still trying to prove her love to him, and basically, try to protect him. Despite again with the social Darwinist upbringing that he's weaker than her, so by that logic, he is inferior, should be die, and he should die, but she did the complete opposite. You know,
right.
and even in heaven, because there is a heaven in that comic book kill. She basically go figure why I need to do the serial killer shit anymore. I could just like basically be the love rival with the other girl. It just being like a almost a romantic comedy in the end. In the
Kinda.
afterlife setting. that's the
But
that's the
Esdeath is
that's
a
the whole.
weird. She's a weird example because she's kind of a mixed bag. Because you can't really like even look at her origin. It's like we don't really know what to go by. It's either the shit that she ate or because of the way her upbringing is. But that's where she's kind of mixy for me. It's like I don't really know what to go by with her.
Yeah.
Like sure she did go out of her way. Sure she didn't follow her dad's philosophy completely. But then it's like, but then what do I go by? The shit she ate or because of the way she was brought up because of her dad? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can argue it's a little bit of both, like half and half.
Some, something like that.
At least that's how I go for it. If the but even that it kind of proves where she's basically a victim of her upbringing, and despite all the bad things she's done, and despite her self-proclamation, we see multiple times, especially in her personal life, that she does the complete opposite. If the of what she claimed herself to be. You know, Yeah,
Hmm.
it's like one of those memes because I get this manga is from the 2000s, like a very edgy manga and anime. I'm not a
It
big
is.
fan. I'm not a big fan of a comic book here. I like the character design, but just not a big fan of the story. If the if the
I get that.
Yeah, it's basically that meme about you know oh, I am the racist man alive, and marries a person who is like the complete opposite of what he just said.
Mm,
It's like the fantasy me like, oh, this dwarf, he is the most racist dwarf you ever met, and marries a dark elf. They're like, wait, what? It's like, wait a minute, how does that work? Like
I don't know.
shit like that happens. I like you know I like other characters who people actually try to defend, and which for some reason like why you defend these for like Katra or
Dude,
that one.
dude, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started with Catra because Catra's situation. Catra is a victim, but then here's the problem with that: she still supported the Horde, and then on top of that, her victimization doesn't really influence her decisions. It's just her doing that because that's what she wants. Because she admits that. Because at least in Scorpia's case, she was innocent because she didn't know any better about the Horde. She thought the Horde was good. So like, the Scorpia's innocent. Now Catra, she knew what the Horde was doing, and she still supported them. So like I said, her victimization don't really influence her decisions on that. She just wanted to do that because, she wants to be a dictator basically. And then DT, of course, is a Karma Houdini in that sense. And
Yep.
another one I was thinking about, oh yeah, Hordak. That's the right, the clone. Yeah, him too. He's also a Karma Houdini because he doesn't face his Kami pins in that show. And that's what nothing that boggles me with that shit. It's like you gotta be fucking kidding me. Of course he has to have amnesia so now he can get away with all that shit he did. It's like this is some bullshit, man. I swear. It's like these shows love Karma Houdinis for some reason.
Yeah,
And it's just like,
and that's
ugh,
what and I love She-Ra the She-Ra Netflix cartoon. I think it's basically the best He-Man related material, at least in a very long time, right? It's,
Right.
compared to other ones. You know, for me, because most of my understanding of him is exclusively from the original 80s cartoon, that 90s extreme when everything was extreme, version of the my cartoon. The live action movie that is definitely not gay. I'm just saying, and and the and
Right.
the and the Master of the
Totally not gay.
Universe and the Master of the Universe Netflix series is supposed to be the sequel to the original, which for me doesn't make sense because the original didn't never have an overarching story.
Not really.
Yeah,
Not really.
I mean,
I guess they
it
want to give it one.
yeah,
There's
it was
that.
it was an episodic series. Like we didn't have overarching stories and cartoons. It didn't become really a thing until the 2010s. Like the 80s, I can only think of like five cartoons. The 90s, only a handful. The 2000s, where we see the transition from episodic to story driven. Like we see that like some shows are being episodic while others being more story driven. It wasn't until the 2010s with the popularization of Adventure Time where story driven cartoons are like you can actually do it, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I find it kind of funny they're taking an '80s show and then doing a continuation decades later. I'm like, damn. And like you said, they didn't really have much of a plot to begin with. But is it weird that they separate the She reboot from the whole He-Man stuff? That's what the other thing that I find. Because even Gray Skull was literally something else in the She reboot on like how they made it in the original stuff. Because I thought that was kind of a weird change to that.
I mean, hey, good thing they separate themselves with the regular E3 Mega so it can be its own thing, I think that was their strength, you know?
But another problem with the She reboot is that they didn't really expand upon the whole She-Ra stuff. They just kind of left a lot of that lore that they were trying to do with it. Like just like how Ruby, I hate to make this comparison, but just like how Ruby does explore much lore on like the Silver Eyes, they did explore much more lore on what they were trying to do with the She-Ra thing, like the when they wield the sword and shit like that. That's what I find to be kind of odd. It's like, why wouldn't you want to look more deeper into that?
It is what it is. Like I said, that wasn't the main focus of the show anyway. Like I said,
No, but it's just that. No, but it's just that if you're gonna like have her be another one to become Shira, if you're gonna have Adora become Shira, it's like you kind of have to explore, expand upon that part of it too, so you understand what's going on. And that's kind of what the issue is with that. Because even in parts where they do try to explore it, they don't really go or do a good job of executing how that works for Adora, especially people before her when becoming Shira.
yeah. I
So
mean,
like that's where
yeah,
that shit fails.
yeah. I mean, I'm not against it in principle. I'm just saying,
Right.
it's the like I said, I'm a big fan of She-Ra. Like I said, it's one of the best cartoons of the 2010s. I think it will be considered one of the greatest cartoons of all time. You know, if debatably for me at least, out of all He-Man related material, this is by far the best one. Again, it has its flaws, catch up maybe, but but compared to other
Don't forget about DT and Hordak. Don't forget about DT and Hordak.
Yeah, fair enough. But you get my point, right? Compared to other He-Man material, which I don't hate it, I enjoy it for what it is, but this is by far like the highest quality animated material of the franchise. You know, which is you can argue is not much because again, it's one of the very few examples that actually has like a they prioritize like story driven, like plot driven story. While He-Man is mostly an episodic, like villain of the week type of thing, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Back then, but you have to remember that time everything was kind of more episodic before things became more story driven and lore driven. Because I know in those times, people were some folks that were born around that is still kind of stuck in that mindset of shit just being episodic or just it's just a cartoon. But times have changed to where like now people kind of look deeper into lore and into story driven stuff because now there's more meaning to it and then it's more expanding upon things unlike how things used to be. So it's like that's how things have changed.
Yeah. Like I
Because
said,
I mean, like for example, like when Total Drama Island came around, that's kind of what started with the whole analyzing an episode or analyzing the whole thing, and then after that, people just kind of started doing that with whole video essay and stuff when they look at bigger stuff.
yeah. Like I said, like people always like the idea of like story driven, like lose yourself in a fictional setting that has its own history, like culture, logic, and stuff like that, right? But
Right.
it originally started in literature, like Tolkien's Legendarium. H.P.
Pretty
Lovecraft,
much.
H.P.
Pretty much.
Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft Cthulhu Tales. The Isaac Asimov Foundation series. Those are like the originators, right? Uh, for
Hmm.
for animation, it took its time to appreciate to do something similar to that, right? And
Pretty much.
weirdly enough, video games did it earlier. The animation,
They really did.
despite being a more younger like medium compared to like animation. Animation's been around since at least the 1890s, right?
Yeah.
Este, while video games, well, it's a debate. At the earliest, it's like 1940s, at the absolute earliest, right?
Right.
So like it wasn't until like 1986 when Legend of Zelda debatably is the first video game that introduced those types of concepts like a overarching story, a lore, world building. Like the first Legend of Zelda had those things. Yeah,
Right.
by today's standards compared to other games, it's bare minimum. But like again, for 1986, this is unheard of. It's like, it shows you the map, it shows you the concept of the Triforce, the different races, who was the king of Hylia, who was the princess, who was this mysterious wizard in the cave, when he's related to that other wizard. Yeah, I didn't know that. Like all this shit. Like that was unheard of in
Right.
1986.
Oh damn, it's been a while. But yeah, video games did have like an expanded lore, especially like with when we started doing video game adaptations, and we wanted to like put that lore. Oh great, Super Mario movie's not the well at least the first one's not the one you want to choose for that, but the one afterwards after so many decades, yeah, you can choose that one for like that if you want to get into the lore or to look at the lore itself. I mean, look at Zelda. They want to do a They want to do a live action adaptation of it, which I'm not sure how that's going to go, and they want to explain upon Zelda's lore, but Zelda's lore has so much shit in it that I feel like there's probably like the only way for someone to get into is that they have to start out small with the smaller stuff first. I can't remember which part because you know more about the Zelda lore than I do, but they have to start out with one of those story arcs first before they go into the bigger stuff. Because
Yeah,
otherwise, then people won't know what the hell's going on.
yeah. Like I said, Zelda, like pretty much at the beginning, is the first game they were already entertaining this. Of course, they didn't plan ahead, like 30 games later, right? That was by accident later, but like, yeah, they already have an idea. Like the second game, eventually, is a direct sequel. It takes place a couple of years after the events of the first one, and it actually expands. Like, oh wait, the concept of other Zeldas, like reincarnation. They never explicitly said it, but this is like the introduction of this concept, right? It's the
Right.
the connection to the Triforce is connected with each character. It's start to third idea right there at the second ever game. Then the Link to the Past, which is the third game, is actually a prequel, right? Este,
Right.
that goes further in the past about like the ancestors, and that's where we see the history that happened in between the games and the links that existed in between the games that we never see, like the unification war, it's the war of the Triforce, like those things that happen in between the games, and there is a link in between the games, but we never actually see them, you know. Este,
Right.
the same thing with the Oracle of Seasons and Ages, which originally supposed to be a trilogy, but they never made a third one. Where they introduced one of the three goddesses in their Hylia forms. Este, and then we see the Link's Awakening, which is the most emotionally damaging game at the time, until Majora's Mask. You know, este,
I swear.
that explores
Hey,
other
dude.
realms. Yeah,
Yo, I was just gonna say real quick, since we're kind of getting off track, 'cause this video is just be about Shadow Makima. You want to just wrap up this video before it just kind of gets out of hand?
yeah, sure, why
That was a
not?
conversation outside the video.
Yeah, sure,
Sorry,
why
folks,
not?
about that. We got a little too far.
Ha-
Yeah, that was the video about about his thesis on Makima and me making the comparison between her and Shadow. Because like I mentioned before, Makima's just Shadow if you never met Maria, and Shadow's just Makima if she met the right kind of person. So like I said, both shapely weapons. The only difference is that he had Maria to save him. Makima didn't have someone to save her from that path. So yeah, that's essentially the video to make. Just to give you guys much more to look at than just the abuse of Denji and control and the control stuff. Which, like I said again, we're not condoning any abuse. It's just there's more to it than just that, though. That's what we're just getting at. There's more to it than that. So the bigger
yeah,
picture.
yeah, that will be everything for today. So like,
Yeah,
subscribe, share, dislike, shit post. I don't know. Do what you please. Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Hopefully, no. Hopefully, hopefully, YouTube won't be Makima Heroes to just take this video down. It's like,
That
oh.
that will be annoying. But yeah, see you guys next time. And